I would like to call this board meeting to order. It's a special call board meeting, January 6, 2011, 6 p.m. Let the records reflect we have all board members present. Mr. Colunga, could you please say the pledge? Oh, excuse me. Can we all stand for a moment of silence? Also, we ask that you keep the following families in your prayers: Diego Gonzalez, Betty J. Glenn Falk, Adan L. Salinas, Rosario L. Salinas, Henry Cadriel, and Anastasio Rocha III. Mr. Colunga, could you lead us on to the pledge, please? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. I skipped the roll call. I had already said. Roll call, Ms. Bettis, let the records reflect that all board members are present. Item number 5, recommend approving the agenda of special call board meeting of January the 6th, 2011 with any corrections or deletions. Mr. Springston?
Yes, ma'am, Madam President. Just a note, you received your as per Ms. Garcia, you did receive your information, backup information that was forwarded to you yesterday afternoon at 4:30. Under number 7, conference presentation, item 1, 5A, 5AU were added to the backup agenda, but as of today, agenda item 1 will be deleted from the agenda and backup. Under general function, A, item 2, pages 7A, 7D will be deleted, will be added from the agenda backup. Item 4, pages 11 through 13 will be deleted from the agenda and backup. Item 5, pages 16A through 16L will be added to the agenda backup.
Madam President,
Yes.
I'd just like to make a comment. I was concerned when I saw this agenda because I've never seen an entire agenda for a special call board meeting that's all board member requests. I came with the intention to vote against it, but being that some items were pulled, I guess we can go ahead and I'll vote in favor of it. But I do just want to make a comment that I hope that we don't have entire meetings that are made up of board member requests, because that being the fact, I will vote against approving agendas of this magnitude in the future.
Mrs. Garcia?
Yes, sir,
I
go
want
right
to
ahead.
confirm with Dr. Escobedo. Have never seen this agenda where one member dominates the whole items in here. To me, it's governance. I think it's wrong. It's unethical. And I hope that we stop this. I like doctor. There's some items that we need to discuss, and that's one should be done. But the rest is uncalled for.
Ms. Garcia,
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Ms. Longoria.
it's my understanding that the board president is the one that calls the special call meeting, and the board president puts the agendas that he or she wants to discuss.
And that is correct, ma'am. Anytime she can call a special meeting. We're talking about items in the agenda.
Well, these are the items
And
that she,
has
it's
to
her,
be
it's her
administrative
duty, sir.
directed, not board directed.
It's her
ma'am.
duty.
Especially
Can
when
you,
it deals
can you
with
let her
personnel.
finish, Mr. Aguilar? Please let her finish what she has to share, and then I'll give you the floor. Thank you. Go ahead.
These agenda items, did they come from other board members other than you, President?
Yes, I had some other concerns because I believe some of you were concerned about the budget, and you needed to question, since we have a short month. We have a lot of things coming up. We have February, which is char days towards the end. We have a lot of things that we have to take care of before March. We have spring break coming up the first or second week of March. Therefore, since we are running out of time and we have deadlines, some of these I figured that if I could bring onto the board as a whole, we could all prepare and at least tackle the other agenda items that are still pending for us to look into. That's the reason and that's the purpose, especially some of these that pertain to our finance, and that is something that we take very seriously as a board.
But I am correct, right? It is, perhaps, legal counsel can verify the board president does have the authority or right to bring the agendas that she or he feels need to be addressed?
Yes, under your policies, it's the board president that can call the special meeting and the items, but they're prepared in consultation with the superintendent.
Yeah.
So it is not considered governance, as Mr. Aguilar stated.
That's a fine line.
I think we're ready to move on.
Okay.
We're not going to
Mr.
get
Garcia.
anywhere.
Yeah, but
If I could also comment in dealing with the special call meetings, when I first received the agenda, it was a question of what would be the urgency, considering the previous discussions on these items from December. I did not recall any mention at that time that as soon as the year starts, we need to address these items, be prepared for a special call meeting to look at these items. And would appreciate a heads up on upcoming special call meetings that make us aware of the scheduling being considered for a special call meeting. If it comes as a surprise, as without any communication with the board, it makes it a difficult prediction on how many will attend a special call meeting.
Okay, I agree with you, Mr. Colunga, but in the past, none of us had ever been informed of special call board meetings. But since we are a new board, I will take your advice, and I will surely share that with all of you. But in the past, even when I was sitting in that seat on my right-hand side, never did I get notified that we were going to have a special call board meeting. Never did I get asked if I would be available for that special call board meeting. But let's go ahead and move forward. I will take your advice, and that's the way it will be done from here on forward.
If
Thank
you're
you.
not going to acknowledge me anyway, but it was at the previous meeting, it was always announced there would be a special call meeting, ma'am.
Ms. Presas?
Go ahead, Ms. Peña.
And just for clarification, with Mr. Micheli, am I correct, pronouncing that
Micheli.
correctly? When we have a special, because we're kind of on the issue that we are trying to cut back and not have overtime, and sometimes we have employees at special call board meetings that are on overtime. So we are kind of contradicting ourselves and telling our superintendent, this is just my personal opinion, not against anyone, please understand that, to cut overtime when we create overtime because we have special call board meetings. So can you clarify, a special call board meeting in my mind was something that has to be like pressing and urgent, or it can be for any reason that any board member feels we have to have a special call board meeting?
Well,
Can you clarify that?
your policies don't define it as having to be an emergency, but just in terms of governance,
Or urgency?
it really should be something that's used sparingly, and because there is some, a sense of something
Urgency.
that needs to be done quickly, exactly. And of course, that depends on what, and board members will disagree at times on
Right,
what the
right.
items are, but that's exactly right. It should be relatively infrequently.
Okay, because I did notice and I didn't realize, because I know you said other members, Ms. Presas, and just out of respect to you, I know you said other members had requested this information, but they all have, it looks like they all have your initials that you requested it. So if some of our board members want to request it, it's only fair to you that they requested it and they put your initials and not make it look like you have everything on you when the request is coming from them, because that would eliminate it looking, if in fact it isn't all yours, that you have other colleagues who did it, but you did it for them, and it doesn't come across the way it should be. Because I know she said that Ms. Lucy said that other people were interested in the agenda item, and let's do it that way. That way it doesn't look like we have one board member who is governing the whole meeting, and that's what I'm trying to get across. So thank
That's
you.
fine, Ms. Bingham. It doesn't bother me whether I have all the items or not. I'm willing to move this district forward, and that is what we're here to do. So therefore, let's move along.
Thank you.
Item number 6, recommend approval.
You need a
Do I
motion
have
to
a
approve.
motion?
I move.
Motion by Ms. Longoria. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Dr. Saavedra. All those in favor? Aye. We have 2 nays and 6 yeas. Five yeas and 2 nays. Let the records reflect Mr. Colunga and Mr. Aguilar voted against it. Escobedo, Ms. Longoria, Ms. Peña, and Dr. Saavedra and myself voted for it.
And please note also, I agree with it because I'm on the consensus of Mr. Escobedo. The items that I had a concern with were removed, and for that reason, I'll agree with the agenda because I had a concern with the other ones.
Item number 6, recommend approving the consent agenda. The board has agreed to discuss the following items. All of the items below that are not called out will be approved by consent. Items to be discussed is item number 2, item number 3, item number 5, item number 6, item number 7A, 7B, we now go to general function. Item number 2, discuss consideration and possible action regarding policy for voluntary employees insurance programs. Mr. Colunga?
Yes, based on previous discussions on the voluntary employee insurance programs working well in terms of employee participation and the non-involvement of the district and allowing the choice for employees, can you, Ms. President, can you explain what the problem is that is looking at a possible change in that policy with voluntary employee insurance?
At this time, we're not going to be changing anything, Mr. Colunga. Let me tell you that it's been reviewed with administration. And also, Mr. Mitchell, could you please share the concern of the policy or the way we would have probably brought better services to our employees?
Okay. What your policies really provide in these voluntary programs or cafeteria plans is really the district's ability to deduct so that it's a pre-tax income. And it does that for any of these providers who any employee asks to do so. The issue is really separate from your policy, as I understand it, when you look at a committee that selects a provider, and it's not limited in policies how many providers it would limit it to, but what it did is select one provider to give it access to employees during school to learn about the product. And I understand there are some allegations, I don't know whether they're accurate or not, that there were either misrepresentations or people understood what occurred. So I think one thing that the board could do in terms of policy or administrative action is to look at how many providers are given access, if you're going to give access to any providers at all, whether you're going to require them to put anything in writing so that it's clear in terms of what was represented. But I think those are the nature of the things that I discussed with the board chair and the superintendent prior to the meeting.
So, if is the administrator for insurance here, Mr. Springston? Just one question that I have. Mr. Whittemore, could you please answer?
Can you?
Yeah, but I would prefer I discuss it with Mr. Whittemore, please.
As you wish.
Please, thank you, sir. I just have a question. On these, how many, is there like a set number that employees need to sign up before they allow somebody else to come in? Is there like a certain quota of employees that need to be signed up before somebody offers a volunteer insurance?
Madam Chair, Superintendent Springston, members of the board, I would have to go back and check, ma'am, on individuals or individual companies. When they came in, we were not communicated that there was a set number. ING, for example, had a restriction, I think, of 100 members before they would come through, but I would have to go back and get the details.
Okay, and then another thing, I have a question. Would we, under the IRS, don't we have anything to do? I believe there's a section or a code, I believe, for the IRS that we would need to, because we are involved automatically. That was the question, just for clarification that we won't be held accountable for anything if at any point in time we do something wrong.
I don't think you would have any accountability or liability from the number of providers you allow in or how you set up the presentations or program. Because you do deductions, there can be some liability from deductions if errors are made in that, but not from having a volunteer program.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Colunga? Mr. Aguilar?
No.
Just
Thank you.
if I may, Madam,
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Aguilar?
No, I heard Mr. Michelle, or did I pronounce it correctly, sir?
Yes.
Said there was some kind of misrepresentation by some insurance. What are some of those that we are aware of, Mrs. Springton?
I just heard from Ms. Garcia that she had received some phone calls that were some complaints about the AFLAC group not representing themselves according to what they had given to the insurance committee. But that's all I've heard.
Well, was tremendously enough. Did our insurance people follow up on this? Because I believe they sent us some literature, what they had promised, and what they were doing. Did they follow up on it to check these figures? Because I think that's part of misrepresentation. Because I received some on the mail from administration. Did they follow up on this?
Yes, sir. Mr. Fuller, I had him check into this.
Thank you, Mr. Springston. Ms. Garcia. Mr. Aguilar, I believe you're referring to a memo that was from our internal audit. I've got concerns with that process because there was a review done, but there was no type of ability for my department to go and review her work that she was reporting to you all. As I believe she used one word in there, not a misappropriation. I don't have that memo with me. But after going back, we are finding out that the vendor AFLAC, when they presented it to the Employee Benefits Committee, they presented a plan comparable to what Colonial had prior to. But also that critical accident, I believe it was, they also have other variations that an employee can choose from. So if you have an employee that doesn't want the benefits, and this is just example, again, I don't have it in front of me, if they don't want that $500 hospital stay per day, they can choose a plan that has $250. So, and that's what I'm being told by AFLAC, and we're gathering the information now to report back to Mr.
So you're
Springsteen.
saying there's several plans within the same policy.
Correct.
Of course, each plan has a different premium.
Correct.
Would that be misrepresentation, sir?
No, that wouldn't be misrepresentation. I think the issue in terms of the policies is you want to even avoid the situation where anyone's confused, either because they misunderstood or there was misrepresentations. You can firm up your processes so you avoid these problems in the future. I have no knowledge or any reason to believe that AFLAC misrepresented anything.
But I'm really concerned with that, Mr. Springton, because those policies need to be clearly explained to every single employee, whether they have different policies or not. It is a voluntary understand, so whatever plan they choose,
Yes, sir.
that's what they get. But let's say the whole complete story in that report, because the report that I received only says that they were misrepresented because they promised this and then they provided with a different premium, not saying that there were different programs, you see. And I think that's when I have a problem with all these things going on in our district is they want to give you a certain part of the story. Then when we go and investigate, we find out the whole truth. And there's, like you said, there's no misrepresentation. It's just a matter of which one do you want. Thank you, ma'am.
And you see, that was a question, Mr. Aguilar, that when I saw that, it stated like, an example, it stated that for air ambulatory services was $250 versus the other line was $100. Now, I signed up, well, not me, but my husband signed up on it, but there was nothing showing there the breakdown because we went through all the documentation thoroughly. So what are they selling to our employees? That's a concern that I, as a board member, and I think he has a concern as well. It's because if you're going to sell it by plan A, plan B, plan C, will show Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, versus what the internal auditor showed us was that it was presented like this, but where's the other breakdown of the other,
Yeah.
you know,
And I-
selection that they could have had a choice?
And I agree, but that's a separate discussion than the report that was given to you all before the Christmas break, where she reported only her side of it. That's where it's important that the internal audit, or as an external audit, they need to get with the people that are responsible.
That's right.
To get the both sides of the story. Yes, the audit will show the concerns or findings, which is not a problem, but then they also see the response. An audit will have a response to every concern or finding. Now, the other side, the discussion we're having, making sure the employees are fully understanding the different plans, we will work on that in the future to come. We will make sure that if they have a variation, that it's fully explained at that point in time.
That it's exposed and explained.
And because I'm
Go ahead.
concerned also on all this is happening, even though I don't pay for it, it's just involuntary services. But listen, we need to look into this. And also, I would like to recommend, Mr. Springton.
Yes, sir.
That the lead auditor gets with it, because she also gave us half of the story and made it look there was something wrong that the administration was doing. And again, it's been happening for the last 2.5 years. This needs to stop. So you, as representing us, because you have the duty, the administrative duty with that lead auditor, for her to be more careful with her reporting.
Did you have something?
Ms. Presas,
Go ahead, Ms. Spring.
on the same point, if I may, Ms. Presas, Mr. Springston, the problems we're having in the district, and they're happening district-wide, and it's affecting our whole community, because we're the largest employer in this community, is that only half of the stories are getting out, the complaints. And for some reason, I don't know why, is it to sensationalize like they do on television stations or newspapers or blogs? This information should not get out as a report if it hasn't been complete, because it's not fair to anyone. It's not fair to you, it's not fair to us. If we can please assure that nothing gets out to any of us until it's completely complete, because sometimes we jump at half of the information and we run one way and then we find out we were wrong. You know, that good old saying, believe only half of what you see and nothing about what you hear. We need to kind of adhere to that. If we can please make sure that we don't get a report that we only got one side. That's not fair. And if they come back and say, well, she didn't answer or he didn't give me a response, then your report is incomplete. Your report is incomplete till you get, that's how we work in the state, that's how we work everywhere. If you don't get part 2, it's always going to be an incomplete report. And it's only fair because it gets everybody all excited, all riled up, and then all of a sudden, there's nothing there. And we feel like, you know, like fools. So if you can please make sure that they get part 2, even if they have to go stand in front of that person and say, give me a response, because it's not fair to have a half investigation turned over to any of us. And that's just out of respect for all of us, because it didn't happen to any of us here. And I would always like to be given the chance to have part 1 and part 2. This is not against anyone. This is not to bring anybody down. This is just to say how facts should be dealt with. Please, thank you.
Garcia, I just want to apologize to Mr. Michelle.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr.
I'm sorry that I guess you and I did not know the whole story about those misrepresentation, the different options. So my apology to you, sir.
No need.
Ms. Garcia.
Yes, Ms. Longoria, go right ahead.
Is Ms. Flores here so we could ask her whether her investigation or research was completed or not? Because she's always been very professional, and she doesn't release any information until she has gotten all the facts and all the reports completed. So can we ask her, Mr. Springston?
I'm thinking what the board and what I'm picking up here is that when she sends out for information only item to the board, that in that informational item only, there should be a response to the people that she is sending the information about. And what the board is asking, and I've asked her the same thing, is that we make sure that when we send out information, that all parties involved in this information have had an opportunity to respond. If there's information about something going on in the district, that whatever that something is, it has at least an opportunity to look at what she has found in her audit and respond to the findings. And that way, you've got both sides of the story instead of just
I
one.
believe we did ask Mr. Whittemore if he had a copy of the letter, any documents that he could provide to us. So I don't know why, he didn't get together with Ms. Peña or Ms. Flores, I'm sorry, Ms. Flores,
I don't know if she asked or not. I don't
because
know.
we did ask for several documents pertaining to this issue. So, and we did, I remember Ms. Garcia asked Mr. Whittemore for a copy of the letter that was signed by an employee from BISD or anything that had to do with.
Dr. Saavedra, go ahead.
Yes, I just have one comment. And I think this is because it pertains to everything that is happening as a board and with the administration. Communication is very important.
Battle.
And if we miss a link somewhere around communication, this is what happens. We're all in the dark in some areas, so we really need to work harder in working together. We're now one body, and so we need to work together, administration with the board, so that we can become more effective and more efficient.
Agreed.
So, and I think that this is why it's so important, and I think a lot of it has to do with we're assuming that everyone is on the same page, and we need to be like classroom teachers. Do not assume anything. Do not assume that the children or anybody knows. We need to make sure that all T's are crossed and all I's are dotted. So, just for future, because we could go on. These meetings could go on forever if we do not communicate properly, and that nothing is hidden and nothing, comes as a surprise, that we all are on the same page when we come. That's what board meetings should be conducted, and how. That we come, we're all on the same page, we take care of business, and we're out.
More efficient.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Saavedra. So just for the record, if you could just follow up on that, like Mr. Aguilar stated, Mr. Springston, and I guess get the response, the other side of the response, please. No action was taken. Item number 3, discussion, consideration, possible action regarding consultant contract for insurance procurement. Mr. Colunga?
Madam President, at this time, I'd like to object to the consideration of this item. If the purpose is to rescind a contract that had been previously approved by the board, then to bring it back for rescinding the contract, it would have to be brought back by a member of the prevailing side. And my question would be, Ms. Garcia, if you were on the prevailing side in that vote for the consultant?
Was I on the, I voted against it, but this item was requested by Ms. Longoria. She had questions about it. So,
Ms. Presas?
yes.
With all due respect, it says Carta Presas. That's where I go back, ma'am, and say that we can't, it's not proper or factual to sit here and say this is Ms. Longoria's item when it has your initials on there. And that's why I say it's not, let's us all be upfront and own up to our requests and do it and take our own responsibility for them. And that way you don't come here and say, well, so-and-so wanted it. It's not fair. We're adults. We're all educated individuals here. We need to own up to what we ask for and not ask one of our colleagues to do it for us. It's not proper that way because it's not fair to you.
And that's fine, Ms. Peña. She didn't ask me to do it. She had a concern, so I placed it as an item of concern to bring back to this board, since she is a new board member and so is Dr. Saavedra, so at least they know what is going on with this item. And I believe that there were some concerns, and that's why it was only important for us to bring it back.
Okay. Okay, I misunderstood.
I don't know
thought you
if
said she
you-
wanted to do this, so I misunderstood what you just said earlier.
But as a board president, I do have the right to bring it back anyway.
Yes, you
So-
do, ma'am, but I just
Okay.
wanted to find out, was it you or was
Do
it
you
Ms.
have a
Longoria?
question, Ms. Longoria?
Yeah, no, I was just going to let Ms. Peña know that I didn't know myself that you were going to put it on. I had mentioned the concern. And, I don't have any problem putting any agendas on.
Okay, Ms.
Madam
Dr.
President.
Escobedo, go ahead, Mr. Escobedo.
May I have a question? May I address the council?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Counselor, how many of these agenda items did you write? Did you word these items?
Yes.
Yeah, I was asked to draft
Counselor
language.
addressing.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
I was asked to draft the language for the agenda items.
So you wrote all these agenda items yourself? That's
Yeah.
your wording?
Well,
Your
there was a
penmanship.
draft, and I provided some editing, but I looked at all of them.
So did you write them?
I didn't write the first draft of them.
Okay,
I
I'm not sure I
edited
really
them.
understand your answer, but that's fine. Thank you.
We're on the fence with it. So. Pick a side. Start.
See, my concern is that if I,
Go
may
ahead,
I,
Mr.
Ms.
Aguilar.
Garcia?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Aguilar.
I have no problem with some of these things, but some of these items don't state what we're looking for. Possible action for what?
I believe, first of all, we have paid this consultant as stated in our
I know,
policy.
I know.
We're going against our policy, and
Okay.
I think that there was a payment done before all services were rendered or completely rendered. And if I'm not mistaken, policy reads that we should not render payment until all services are complete. So that in itself, what is the violation if, what's the liability if we violate policy? Where does that put this board if we continue to violate policy or the procedures that we should follow?
Well, you know, under this contract, it provides for a one-time payment and obligations thereafter, so I'm not sure that you have any clear policy violation. In fact, it would be, quite arguable that you didn't. The bigger question is if you continue to violate policy, that's a governance issue that's a problem with TEA overseeing you. But what you have here is a contract that provides for a one-time payment, but also obligations that can be enforced under the contract. So I think the contract in and of itself is you can't say that there's a problem with the contract. Now, the issue of performance, that I'm not familiar with. But in terms of the way the payment structure is, I think a court would find that this would be legal.
You have any questions, Ms. Longoria?
Ms. Presas, Mr. Michel, let me understand this then, because this issue was brought up during one of our last meetings.
Last meeting.
So, and that was something that was a real concern. And I was not aware, because we don't see a lot of the contracts. We leave that up to our board president, superintendent, and of course you, the attorney. And if the contract calls for a one-time payment and we agree with that contract and we approve that contract, then we have approved that particular one. That would not be going against, that could not be used against us as going against our policy where we don't render payment until the services were performed. We would be in compliance there. Would we be in compliance with his first, let's say the first, because it required several different steps, am I correct? He performed several different functions for us, all the same, but at several different times. The consultant, am I correct? So in the first time that he did his job and provided the information for us, he has met his contract. He was paid that one time. You could per se say, well, he already rendered the services, you've already paid him, but he has a contract, let's say, for another 8 months. Well, it's already paid for. So am I correct in understanding you that we would not be in violation of our policy as it is written? Or is there a fine line there?
Well, I mean, part of it is you pass a contract and you have an action that it means that the board is saying this is consistent with our policy, is how you have to look at it on the face of it. And
Okay.
the only thing that if you didn't have a contract and in that, you would have a clear violation because you'd have no ability to enforce the provisions.
Right.
With a contract, you can enforce the performance that you're requesting of him as it comes down the line. I'm just saying this from a legal point of view. If you brought this before a judge, I'm not sure how good your chances would be that you would prevail that this contract is void because it didn't follow your policies. Now, that's different from a management perspective of how you think you should be providing payment with any vendor that you have.
But we did approve, once we approved the contract, then we approved the terms of the contract.
Yes.
So no court in the land would say that anything was done wrong by them because we're the ones that approved it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and because it wouldn't be I think, a clear enough violation of a policy in terms of receiving services before you get. I mean, that's all
Okay.
really tied into the Texas constitutional concept
Right.
of creating a debt, a gift of public funds.
Right.
But the way the defense to that, or the way you avoid the problem rather, is you make sure that you're getting a benefit for what you're contracting for, and that you have enough controls in place to ensure that that occurs.
Okay.
And that's why I think from a contract perspective, a
have
judge
that.
would be hesitant to say that this would violate that constitutional provision and also the policy that underlies it.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Ms. Longoria?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion.
I second. All those in favor?
What's the motion, I'm
What's the
sorry?
motion?
What's your motion? What's your motion?
I'd like to move to terminate the current contract with the insurance consultant and instruct Mr. Springson to prepare RFQs to go out for a new insurance consultant effective immediately.
If I may,
I
before that
second.
second, may I say something really important?
Mhm.
I go back again. We're here to save money. You preach it like that's all, and I picked that up. We're here to save money. We have already paid for this particular person's services till August, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
$55,000. So for us to terminate it right now does not benefit the district in any way or manner because he's already been paid for a service, and that's how I understand it. So for us to turn around and say, well, let's go out again for more RFPs, RFQs, then we're going to spend money again at this point when we're telling our teachers, our students, the public community, we are tightening up our belts. But today, we're just going to go out and find someone else. I don't see us doing that unless we see that he has done something wrong. And at this point, even if we find that, the money has been paid out. It benefits him to be cut short because he's not going to give us
Yeah.
the year. Am I correct, sir? I'm asking Mr. Springston.
That's correct.
Okay. Go ahead,
I'm just
Mr.
wondering.
Aguilar.
You know, this is uncalled for in my book. Of course, this is my personal opinion. How can we terminate someone when he's already saved $9 million the first year to the district? How can we terminate someone, Mrs. Longoria, when he advised the board of what the other company was doing? This is why we filed a lawsuit. Is it because it's not in our favor? Or is it, what is it? I can't understand that. I can't understand why you cannot
the
see
lack-
that $1 million savings in our insurance, Mrs. Longoria.
Except today, Mr. Aguilar, I have not seen that in black and white.
No, ma'am.
I hear about it, but I have not seen it. Except today, I have not seen the savings.
That is
Perhaps you have. Can you show it to me?
And it's getting better. The insurance will come again. By the end of the year, they're going to tremendous savings.
Another good example is just what happened right now with the
with
Affleck.
Affleck. That's
Our
another example.
employees.
That's
They
like
were
they're not
given
doing a thing wrong, according to our attorney.
They were given wrong information
No, they were not given information. It's because
or false information. Yeah, they were presented with one.
It's you who interpreted, did not allow us
Yeah.
to give you the second plan of the AFLAX, in which I don't care who gets the insurance plan.
Well,
But let's
there's a
do the
lack-
thing that is right, ma'am.
The consultant has not been looking out for the best interest of the employees, nor the district, nor the taxpayers. There's lack of
Where is the
trust.
evidence to
There's
that,
lack of trust and
allegation?
confidence.
Where is the evidence to support
Well,
that?
perhaps we should have some employees come in here and express what they've been experiencing.
Ms. Longoria, may I interject here, please? We will give you a copy of the last quarter for the first plan year for MAA, which is a TPA for health insurance. And in that fourth quarter report, we'll give you the dollar amount that Mr. Aguilar was talking about. We will also give you and Dr. Saavedra, a copy of all quarter reports that were presented by MAA, which is a TPA for health. Also, we had a external audit done by a vendor, out-of-state vendor that specializes in insurance claims.
And who was that vendor, sir?
That was
CTI.
CTI.
Okay. Perhaps if we get a forensic auditor, maybe that'll help us all. But
So-
at this point in
So
time,
what I'll do is I'll give you copies of those quarterly reports. And we also just finished the first quarter of the second plan year. And I believe Ms. Garcia called an insurance committee meeting for January the 28th. And we've already confirmed with all the players that they will be here to give that quarterly report.
Ms. Presas?
and then, let me, wait. Also, I've been requesting for copies of the checks of our refunds or our reimbursements. I've yet to see one.
That was distributed to you probably back in September. I'd have to go back to the Friday letters. Also, you're having a Friday, from your request on December 13th, you're sending the request for all kinds of information. That'll be given to you all tomorrow.
It'll be given to us tomorrow?
Yes.
What's the figure that'll show there? And then I also have a question. How many employees are still reflecting on a roster where this district is still paying for insurance for those people who no longer are employed with the district.
Are you talking health insurance?
Yes, correct.
Right now, I understand that it's been reconciled to the current employees that we have.
When was the last time it was reconciled?
I don't have that information, but I understand it's reconciled monthly.
Could you please give me the time when that was reconciled? Please look at the date, the last report. Who did the report? Because I understand that was still being done just recently.
Well, because people come and go, there is going to be that lapse in time where that maybe not gets to the vendor. But once that the closing or they resign or retire gets to them, they will then cease deductions.
Yeah, but meanwhile, the district, that's money that we're paying without those employees
But
having
we
to
also
be
get it
employees of the
returned
district.
to us.
And how much of that has been returned to the district?
Ma'am, you're asking me questions I don't know offhand, but we
Okay,
can get that.
that's another concern, and that's the reason why we hire the consultant to take care of those matters. We have a motion on the table.
Yes.
I second it. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
4
yes, and let the records reflect 3 no. Ms. Peña
No,
against?
because we're going to spend money, and I want to stress, and I want this documented. The reason I'm saying no, we already paid $55,000. We have 8 months on the contract, and at this point in time, without any evidence, because I would have appreciated that it would be tabled, so you can bring the evidence forward that shows that this gentleman has done something that it went against the district. I would also like to make sure that we do get the money that was saved by the district. I still want to see that, because I want to justify that we're going to spend money that we do not need to, because, and I'm going to say this, and this is my personal feeling, because we have people who don't like other people, and their dislike is so deeply rooted in their soul that the district's spending money on this dislikes. And I'll tell everyone this right here, right now, to everyone's face. I don't have to like you to do right by you. I don't have to like you to take care of you when it's required, and I don't have to like you to take care of your home. If I may please finish, and then you will have the
Finish,
floor,
Ms.
Ms. Lucy.
Longoria.
I just want to make sure that we put on the record, the reason is no is because we are running short on funds. For no other reason, Lucy, but just that we're running short on funds, and now we're going to pay somebody else, and we already had someone for the rest of the time. I really am concerned about that, guys.
We will give you the information for the fourth quarter results last year, and for the record, this recommendation or the action tonight is not from the administration.
Okay,
Point of order.
thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Point of order, Ms. Garcia. The vote on this item is out of order. I raised an objection to the consideration of this item at the beginning, which under Robert's rules calls for a vote to consider or not to consider. It does not require a second, and my objection was not considered for the vote, and therefore this motion is out of order.
May I
Go ahead.
address our
Mr.
counselor?
Mitchell?
Are we out of order?
I don't believe you are. I know the concept that you're talking about, reconsideration or to amend a motion, and when it's done after the next session, it requires a two-thirds vote to do it. But the way this has been interpreted is that when you bring a contract back where it's been defeated and you vote to address it again, that's where that concept applies. I think what you're talking about here is you've passed a contract and you have a motion to terminate. And it's not been interpreted that way, because that would convert every termination of a contract, even when you had good cause, into a supermajority vote. And it's technically a different vote than voting on the same thing again.
I do not agree, but I would like to also, for the record, state that this is an illegal act to proceed with a cancellation of a contract, as well as the waste of taxpayers' money to have over $50,000 paid on a contract in which fiscal responsibility is something that all of us should be concerned with. Why cancel a contract for the sake of cancellation? There has been no case made for any type of wrongdoing by this consultant. In quite the contrary, you have cost savings of over $7 million based on his work with the committees, as well as continuing progress in leading the district forward in more cost savings for the future. It makes no business sense to make a decision not having the facts presented to the board. Maybe you have the facts, Ms. Longoria, Ms. Presas, maybe you have something in front of you that convinces somebody that we should cancel the contract, but I do not agree with the cancellation. I just wanted to go on the record for that purpose.
Ms. Garcia,
Go ahead, Mr. Aguilar.
I also want to go on record that this is, to me, uncalled for. Nothing, no one in this board has proven that he has done anything wrong. He has saved us a lot of money. It seems to me that those that voted to terminate him, with exceptions of Dr. Saavedra and Ms. Longoria, the other two members already knew and have always been against this man being our consultant. So, it's kind of strange to look into this and say, now we got the votes to get rid of him. And if it is, it seems like it is, I think we're terminating someone with the wrong reason.
Go ahead.
Mr. Spring, what does this mean? This is to issue a letter of 30-day notice? Is that what this entails?
No.
Immediately.
Immediately.
Termination immediately.
And we go out for RFQs.
What would be the options? I mean, the options, and I know that, we're kind of going in circles here, but I mean, the option is to terminate immediately. The option is to give a 30-day notice. The option is to go for RFQs upon completion of his contract, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, which would be, I'm sorry, refresh my memory, in
August, I think?
August.
August. Would this board have a problem in going out for RFQs in August and allowing him to finish
Not at all.
his contract? Would that be acceptable? I know, Ms. Longoria, you had apparently this was your item, even though it had her name on it. I mean, would that be something that you would consider, or I mean, what exactly, or are you set and this is the way you want to do it?
Because we're going to spend money.
I'm sorry, I have the.
Well, if we have a good cause, and that's what this contract says, and even Mr. Saldana, when he was here at the last board meeting, says you can terminate his contract anytime you want, as long as you have good cause. And our good cause is lack of trust and confidence. And he has not been looking out in the best interest of the district, the employees, or the taxpayer.
Ms. Presas?
Go ahead, Ms.
Okay, on the same note, and Mr. Escobedo, and for fear that I'm beating, a dead horse, and I hope not, but I tend to agree with Dr. Escobedo. Would you have a problem? I mean, if something comes up, how many times do you think we're going to have a contract come up between now and then that we're going to use his services between now and August? What's coming up?
Insurance meeting coming up, when is that, the 20th, 28th?
January 28th.
Yeah.
is the-
28th, that's
we'll
when I
be
scheduled.
presenting the first quarter of the second plan year, and we can also present the fourth quarter of the first year,
Okay,
which gives the results that I think it's in question here.
And my point to that is because, again, he's already paid. He loses nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, he loses nothing. Let me state this again. Did I say he loses nothing? He paid. So I have a real big problem, $55,000, and he has 8 months to go. And so now we're going to go out there for RFQs, RFPs right now and burden the district with whatever the new consultant is going to charge. Would it be real difficult? And I'm asking you, please, that we wait till August, and at least if we need him and we have people go over his work and recommendation with a fine-tooth comb, because we have people in our district. We have with Mr. Whittemore, am I correct, for insurance? We have Mr. Fuller. We have Mr. Springston. We have Catapresas. We have Mr. Michelle that can turn around and go over his recommendations with a fine-tooth comb so we don't get penalized or abused or used or whatever word you want to use. And then in August, we go out for RFQs, RFPs, and the guy's gone. I have no problem with that.
Ms. Garcia,
Yes, ma'am.
you
Go
know,
right
I'm
ahead.
very surprised that Mr. Aguilar and Ms. Peña are now very concerned about spending money when they approved the contract to prepay him $55,000 right off the bat.
That priorly, there was another
Now completing
consultant.
Ma'am,
services.
I don't resent that. I don't regret that because he saved us $7 million in the first year. He also told us what the other insurance was doing, and an audit, independent audit, show that he was correct, and this is why we're in court for
So if we
$14
lose
million
money
suing.
here, it's gonna
And
be your
for you to
mistake
say,
because
"I
you
don't
paid."
trust-" I have the floor, ma'am.
Wait a minute. I'm going to give you the floor, Mr. Aguilar. Just wait a minute, please. Ms. Longoria, let him finish, please.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And to say that, to terminate someone because I don't trust, I don't have confidence, I don't think is the proper reasons for the correct reasons to do it, because I could say, I don't trust Mr. Springton, I don't trust the president itself, or have confidence on the board members. And what do? We do the best and we do what's right.
Yeah.
Not because I don't trust, I don't have confidence in someone.
So the right
And-
thing
and
to
it
do-
happens that I don't have
Let him
confidence,
finish.
yet I have to go along with it, just like the insurance she was talking about, that flag, because there's some merit to it. I might not have confidence in some of the insurance, but there's merit to what she says. But don't terminate someone just because I don't trust and confidence, unless you know there's a cause for it.
So it was the right thing to prepay him 55,000.
That's not what you said.
Yes, I did. Is that you paid him?
Trust and I have confidence.
Go ahead, Doc.
I mean,
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Saavedra, in your opinion, do we have options, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I think, again, it comes down to the communication, where we as a board need to work together as one body and one unit. I think that we're hearing so much from employees who are upset with, what is going on with the insurance issues. I think there's a lot, and in the workshops that we have attended, it is about trust, Mr. Aguilar. I'm sorry, but it is. And a lot of it stems from, if you do business with somebody, it's because you have the confidence that they're going to look out. Yes, maybe he did save the district, but I think as we see it now with the employees and with things that are happening, we have to base it on what is best for the constituents. And I think for the employees especially, because they're the ones. So yes, when that trust is broken, it does create this problem and this issue. And it is about trust.
Well, ma'am, may I?
Go ahead, Mr. Aguilar.
I agree with you, there's trust and confidence. However, when we say we have talked to some employees, see, you talk like you have heard 7,000 employees. And the thing is this, every employee has an opportunity to send their representative to the insurance committee.
Exactly.
They represent their campuses. They come to, and you as an educator know that there's a consensus in the voting. And this is how these insurance and these consultants are selected. Now, if sometimes people do not agree to because their choice, what do? They start complaining, it's not right. But they have the right to complain to their delegates and to the committee.
And that's where we've referred them.
And the committee has recommended this consultant for years. They recommended the insurance. They had input. So to say that we don't trust them just because somebody complains, there always be people complaining, ma'am. I mean,
And that is, and as elected officials, Mr. Aguilar, we do have to listen to the employees and the constituents.
Excuse me.
Can't argue with you, ma'am.
Excuse me.
Yes,
let
we
me-
do, but
we're
just they have
talking-
to make a decision, the right decision.
We're
not just-
talking two separate issues. The employees, I believe that you're saying are complaining. That's on the voluntary insurance side.
Ms.
Mr.
Garcia.
No,
Looney.
we also have for the health.
Health.
I had a couple of women that
Okay.
gave birth.
But I think, I'm going to make that clear, there's two separate distinctions.
That's
Mr.
yes.
Looney is on the
Yes.
health
No,
insurance
that's-
side.
Yeah, that's different.
And voluntary
Dr.
is
Escobedo, go
different.
ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry, in fear
Sorry.
of just going in circles, may I bring the idea of perhaps issuing a 30-day notice, a letter of notice, instead of, as compared to immediately? Would that make any difference, Mr. Springston, or, I mean, does it matter either way, whether we terminate immediately or give a 30-day notice?
Well, you're talking 7 months, 8 months, you're just taking away 1 month. I mean, you still got 7 months, 7 months. That's
So in your opinion, if we terminate immediately,
No,
it's just the
30
same?
days.
the only question that I would ever ask sitting in this room would be, the gentleman that's in charge of the insurance committee that works with the employees is Mr. Hammis. I know he's been working with him and directly for the employees and representing the district employees. I haven't heard anything on that part.
Yes, sir, Mr. Springston, Patrick Hammis, Chairperson of the Employee Benefit Committee. In fact, we just had our first meeting of this year, and this year being the calendar year, yesterday.
Mr. Springston, we don't have public input, so We are out of order at this point. So, Doc, did you still have a question? Or
Ms. Presas?
no more questions?
Ms. Presas?
So, yes, Ms. Peña.
Okay, if the 30 days like Dr. Escobedo has recommended and Mr. Fuller, is there a way where whatever's going to come up, what did you say was going to come up as far as insurance?
Our board insurance committee is on January 28th.
That's
what the latest email had.
okay, and so would that help to where, I mean, I want to get my money's worth, ladies and gentlemen, and you can sit here and tell me that last year when we voted for it, and why were we so happy voting for it? Well, I didn't have any evidence. I don't have of no confidence, mistrust. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't like so-and-so. I need evidence, because guess what? There's a lot of people out there that despise every single one of us. A lot, okay? And I'm not going to sit there and pretend it doesn't happen. But they have to have evidence. So what I'm saying is, can we do the 30-day and maybe get something to help us with our insurance? Because to tell me that you don't trust someone when you haven't even met the person or dealt with them, because I've run into issues where people do that to us, and then when they get to know you, they're like, well, I guess I'm going from what I'm hearing and not from what I'm dealing with. I need evidence for mistrust and no confidence. And I know that you know that, but how come that information wasn't brought to us or to me, for example? I thought we were a unit. I thought I'm supposed to know what you're supposed to know. Why wasn't that evidence brought to me, to every single one of us, guys? Because we're dealing with public funds. And I'm fighting here because I'm fighting to get money for kids.
Okay, Ms.
And I'm
Peña, I will,
giving it away.
now can I please?
Thank you, ma'am.
I know that before we had Mr. Looney, we were paying a consultant approximately $28,000. We went from that amount to $55,000, Ms. Peña, and that, you know, that bothers me. So if we're trying to save money, there's somebody else that can give us a
I
better
understand
deal.
that.
So we have a motion, Mr. Michello, if you can help me out. We're now in any violation. It was motion carried 4-3 against.
Passed. It passed already.
Voted by Dr. Saavedra, Ms. Longoria, myself, Katy Perezas, Dr. Escobedo. Against, let the records reflect, Ms. Peña, Mr. Colunga, and Mr. Aguilar. Thank you. We move on next to the next item, please. Item number 5, discussion, consideration, possible action regarding approval of legal services engagement terms with Thompson Horton, LLP, from date of approval of firm by board. And this one we had to bring back my fellow board members because I think we needed to get them approved since they're the interim, the fees. Mr. Springston, I believe, had already reviewed the document, the backup. I think it's a flat fee. Would you like to?
It was an engagement letter, just on the interim services, am I correct? Mr.
Right,
Michelle?
it's a typical engagement letter for legal services. We state the rates in there, the scope of representation, which is essentially everything that we're requested, and we operate at will.
Okay. All those in favor?
I have a question,
Oh, you have
please.
Go ahead.
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
No, nobody made a motion yet, right?
No, nobody has made a motion.
Said all those in favor. Sorry, I'm sorry. I thought I
I'm
lost
sorry.
track.
Apologize.
Okay. There are some questions that I have on the hourly rate of $225 an hour. To me, that seems a little bit high. And I'm going to ask how many years, because it's going by years of experience. So 8 years is I'm trying to open to that page. $225 an hour for someone with 8 years of experience or more, and then it goes down if someone has 2 years or more to what, 195?
Yes,
And then if you have less than 2 years of experience with your firm, it goes down to 150 an hour?
yes.
How many years of experience do you have, sir? And I ask that because I really want to know, when you sit here, what is it costing us?
It's the higher rate. I have 25 years of experience.
And I appreciate that, I really do. It's just that I have a problem with the $225 an hour. I really, really do. And to me, with all due respect, if you have 2 years, it goes down to to 195. I would say it should go down to 150 and have everybody 2 and under, but that's not me,
Madam
that's your firm.
President, Mr.
But I'm just
Springston,
wondering.
Yes.
is it appropriate to be discussing fees in open session, or we need to go into executive? Or?
We need to.
May we? I'm sorry, I
No,
apologize.
no, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Oh, no
So-
executive session?
That's why I kept on. So, You know, at this point in time, Ms. Peña.
All our
you're-
documents
you're
are
giv-
open records, so somebody could always request and get this information, am I right?
Yes, but
So, and I apologize for that. I would like to know if we can go into executive session to discuss this, I really would.
anybody has, is it okay with everybody?
Yep.
Well, now,
Could we vote on
we
it?
have a motion to go to executive session regarding the,
I'd like to move that we go to executive session to continue discussing the.
Can I have a
the
second?
Engagement.
Second.
motion by Ms. Peña, second by Dr. Saavedra. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. The board will now reconvene, and we're back to the item of number 5 under general function. Ms. Peña or Mr. Mitchell?
Yeah, let me go ahead and just in terms of background, you know, there were a couple legal issues that arose from that, but the issue, I think, of fees and what we'll do are open session discussions, as we've talked about, and so let me just address that quickly. You know, you're right from my perspective, from what I can tell, that the rate that we're proposing here are higher, a little higher than what is typical here in this part of Texas. You know, below what we have in Houston. What we think, though, is we can provide greater value. I think one of the things that the district requires is to have excellent legal services, but also particularly in this next biennium and after, in tough budgetary times, a way to find to reduce your legal bills. And I think we've been very effective in that, even though our rates may at times be higher than the districts that we're working with. We do a lot of things to look at how we can best reduce costs, and as time goes on, including arrangements to do some things at a lower cost or to have some standard time that won't be exceeded if people have questions, you know, upper level administrators or board members and so on. And because we're at will, you will be able to see that over time. Either it's going to happen or it's not. And I know one thing that we do is we provide many years of experience. There are several other lawyers there who are recognized experts nationally and do a lot of work, and we represent a number of districts that are comparably sized to Brownsville. And generally, we see that their fees are lower from what I've been able to see from my perspective here, and we think we can help you achieve that even with the rates we have.
Okay.
If I may, Ms. Presas.
Ms. Peña, go ahead.
Like I said, my concern is that, and let's just say, you're going to be here for all our board meetings, and we have been known to run 10-hour board meetings. So we're looking at $2,250 to keep you sitting there looking at us and helping us out, and I appreciate your help. This is nothing against you
No, I
or
understand.
your abilities or your qualifications. I was already jumped on for approving a contract back in I don't know when because it was too much money. So I'm not going to get jumped again and say that I approved someone for $225 an hour, not thinking of the community. And I want to tell you here, you know, eye to eye, my vote against this is not against you. It's against the money because our community's taxpayers' dollars are being used in this manner. Like I said, it was brought up to me earlier tonight that I wasn't paying attention before when we approved a contract for $55,000. Well, $2,250 meetings, and we have them twice a month, can pretty much add up real quick. So for that reason, I have a concern. Nothing against your expertise. I do agree that you are top notch, and I thank you so much. And just listening to you today, you're excellent. This is too much money in for our area. And I believe that's a little high.
Go ahead, Mr. Aguilar. Thank you, Ms. Peña.
Thank you, ma'am. First, I'm going to say that I know that what you explained to us is so true. You know, the legal fees are high, and by golly, that's what you think is worth, your company's worth hourly. My hat off to you, because, yeah, I mean, that's the service that you believe that you're worth. And you're correct to say that we're not used to paying that kind of money per hour here in South Texas. But if I heard you correctly, did you say that perhaps we can work something that later on, or did I misunderstand you?
No, yeah, I think we can, I know one of the district's goals, and it has to be one of our goals, is to help save you money. And we'd look as time goes on to provide, I think, training sessions where perhaps some of the work that you always ran by lawyers doesn't have to be run by lawyers, and we've done that with success in other districts. If your meetings go on for a long time, I think if that happens, then we can find a way to cap the amount that we're paying. You know, I think that there are different ways to look at it as we move on with what we're doing in an effort to do that. I think we can still provide value, and you know, even though we have a number of years of experience, we're a young firm. We broke off from a larger firm and started our own. We're very cost conscious in how we operate and how we present our services.
That's what I'm saying, because we know of that. I've seen your firm and I read on it, and I'm very pleased with the kind of work that you do in different areas, especially special ed, and represents different school districts. My only concern are the legal fees, you see, and I think you explained to me that I think we can reach a point somewhere in time that would be something that we can afford.
Yeah, your questions are all very legitimate.
Thank you. Ms.
Garcia.
Longoria, go ahead.
I believe you had mentioned that it was going to be a flat rate.
It is a flat rate. There's no travel time. Am I correct, Mr. Mitchell?
I think that you may be talking two different things. I think it's not flat in the sense that we're providing, like, you pay us X amount a month and we provide these services, but it's an hourly rate. We will look for ways to cap it or to reduce it for certain types of work where we think can cause a problem. And I think what Ms. Presas is saying is that I'm not charging for travel, either travel time or any expenses associated with it.
Okay.
No travel time.
Ms. Presas?
Go ahead, ma'am.
So then, am I hearing you say that there's a possibility that you can look into the fees and maybe cap it, like if we have the marathon meetings and things of that sort, where, you know, that's nothing we plan. We just, you know, we don't do things intentionally. So
That's right. And I think in an ideal world, I could have provided everything the way we would do it. But part of it is I need to learn, from my perspective, how the district operates and what are the most effective ways of saving money that we can still provide the legal advice and that we think we can do the job that this district expects and requires.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. That makes me feel a little better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peña. Thank you, Ms. Longoria. Do I have any other questions? Go ahead, Mr. Yeah, right?
Yeah, wait.
Mr. Colunga has
For clarification, Mr. Michelle, you represent the board, the district, or both?
I represent both. For school districts, as with any other entities, you've got to find who represents an organization. And the law is pretty clear that it's the board that any lawyer for the district represents, any lawyer in whatever capacity, that's ethically who they're required to serve as the client. And that's the board as a whole. It's personified by your votes and your policies, resolutions.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Aguilar.
Maybe I read it incorrectly, whatever, but there's a statement says in order to contact, you have a question, either we ask the president or the superintendent to contact you. Does that mean that we cannot call you directly, each board member?
I think that's really up to the board. Most boards that I've worked with, that I'm familiar with, for purposes of really efficiency, try to funnel all of the questions usually through the superintendent or the board president, but at the same time, they allow trustees to call the legal counsel. It's got to be just what you're comfortable with, and it's a trust factor, and that there's no abuse, and not really of legal fees, because me and my firm spent countless times talking to people about issues that are not billed, but more the sense is the information being shared with everyone equally and at the same time. That's really the bigger issue.
Dr. Saavedra?
Yeah, and I just need to clarify to all of us, again, the communication, but also the protocol related to the policies and procedures that we have. So I think that it would be wise that the superintendent and the board be addressed with whatever issues. This is just, a recommendation that I'm making, so that not everybody's just picking up the phone. And he will also direct his administrators as well what the procedures and protocol are, so that we're not inundated also with a lot of these fees. And that would help curtail.
And Ms. Presas, just for clarification and final question, or final statement, you represent the board as a corporate body, not individual basis. board members.
Exactly,
Right.
yes.
So okay. No, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Ms.
Yes,
Perez,
Dr. Saavedra, go
I'd-
ahead.
then with everybody through with the discussion, I would like to go ahead and make a motion that we go ahead and approve the legal services agreement terms with Thompson and Horton from the date of approval of the firm by the board.
With your clarification on that, Mr. Michelle, I'll second it.
Thank
To show my vote of confidence for you. I appreciate that.
Motion by Dr. Saavedra, second by Ms. Peña. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Colon. Motion carries. Let the record reflects. Motion 7-0. We now go to closed meeting. Under A, personnel matters discussed with superintendent on issues to provide information to board for use in superintendent's evaluation. We will now
Closed meeting.
go into executive session. Consultation with attorney.
Discussion of executive session that I move that the district take the same position as its errors and omissions carrier and provide a legal defense in the law, huh? Oh, I'm sorry.
Dr. Saavedra, item number 6.
Oh, sorry. I wanna
Hey,
go
two
home.
for part 2.
That's another bird. That's another bird.
That's another bird.
Behave.
Okay, well,
Okay.
I could do that one too.
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Saavedra.
It's because I had the
Item number 6.
number 6. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
No action.
No, on item 6, there was no action taken. So I make a motion that no action,
No, just no action, that's it.
no action.
No action. Now we go to
7.
discuss and consideration regarding legal defense in J. Rodriguez versus C.P. Garcia, number 2010-DCL-05941. Dr. Saavedra?
Thank you, Ms. Presas. I move that the district take the same position as its errors and omissions carrier and provide a legal defense in the lawsuit identified in the agenda item 1B7A. Or
With that-
9, I'm sorry, 9B7A.
With that said, and being that our insurance carrier is taking the position to go with this, then I second the motion because we need to back what our insurance carrier has decided to do.
I have a motion by Dr. Saavedra, second by Ms. Peña. All those in favor? Aye. All those against?
Abstain.
We have 2 abstain. Let the records reflect. Mr. Colunga and Mr. Aguilar will abstain. Mr. Escobedo, Ms. Longoria, Ms. Peña, and Dr. Saavedra will vote, and I will abstain myself. It pertains to a case, so I feel that it would be a conflict, so therefore I will abstain myself. So there's 3 abstain and 4 yes. Thank you. We now go to announcements. Next scheduled board meeting of the Board of Trustee is on Tuesday, January 11th, 2011, at the Administrative Building, 5:30. Motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Escobedo, second by Mr. Aguilar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Meeting is now adjourned.